Hello everybody, my name is Mehmet. Welcome to Scenario-Based Learning. And the next 10-15 minutes we will be talking about how the ECB check quality criteria can help us in designing effective scenarios. And just a few words about myself. My name is Mehmet. I work as a learning and development specialist for the UNICEF Supply Division in Copenhagen. I design, develop and implement learning programs for the UNICEF Supply community, which consists of more than 800 colleagues in more than 90 countries. And I am very happy to be participating in this initiative. And the MOOC has been a really enriching experience. And thank you so much for sharing your comments and feedback already in the forum. And we will be continuing our discussion. So please visit this forum and share your experience and your knowledge on this topic. We all learn from each other. So it's really an exciting opportunity for all of us. Let's have a look at the learning objective for this session. After completing this session, you will be able to design scenario-based learning which meets the ECB check quality criteria. And when we talk about the ECB check quality criteria, we're going to focus on 4, which is the alignment between objectives and activities, the relevant content, the learner-centered design, and the interactivity. The alignment with learning objectives. Creating scenarios closely aligned with learning objective is key in ensuring that learning goals will be met. And if a scenario doesn't meet its learning objectives, then it will fail however learner-centric and interactive it is. It is the learning objectives which define the relevance, and we should keep that in mind. And here I'm also going to use some examples from our e-learning course, which we're currently developing. This is a procurement e-learning course for new staff members. And I hope this will be also helpful for you to see how we're applying the ECB check quality criteria in developing our e-learning courses. These learning objectives are cognitive objectives based on knowledge, and effective objectives describe what the learner will personally gain from the learning. This is key to establishing relevance. So, for example, if someone is seeking promotion as a result of taking this course, then it is not necessary to define this as a learning objective, but it is a tool the instructional designer can use to create a narrative thread through the course. It's a red thread that joins everything together. I talk about the discovery process here because typically a scenario is a challenging situation and it has to be relevant to the context in which learners operate. Often e-learning scenarios have nothing to do with the context. For example, people love to do things like, oh, let's use a Star Wars theme to tell people about our anti-bribery policy. It is a scenario-based e-learning, but it doesn't work. It is also an important feature that scenarios, they offer the learners a safe environment where they can make mistakes and also learn from their failures. So it doesn't harm to make mistakes and pick wrong choices and face the consequences. And this will also develop a deep understanding of principles for the learner. So scenario-based learning enhances the learning process as it also includes very less text and more of a conversational-based learning. And it's the best option when you want learners to perform rather than inform. And for this way to stimulate also the minds of the learners. So adopting this strategy also motivates learners to involve themselves in the learning as they can relate to a specific situation and identify themselves with characters in the scenario. Here you can see another example from our e-learning in which the learner is being welcomed by the supply manager of the country office. And as a learner, I can relate to that situation, especially when I'm new. And I want to understand more about UNICEF's programmatic goals and what the supply chain means and the role of procurement in this context. So this leads us to the first ECB check quality criteria we're going to talk about. It's the relevant scenarios. So the context of the scenario has to be relevant, realistic, and manageable. And I would like to mention that bad examples also make for great learning. So if you know of common errors, misunderstandings, or misinterpretations, then these are the things which the scenario should build on, instead of a perfect world situation. And this also connects very well with the learner-centric approach, which we talked about earlier in the ECB Check quality criteria overview. So for the learner, it's also, you understand my problems. Here in our e-learning course, we talk about options in which procurement processes fail. So we face the learners with challenges. What happens if you don't do that? And for example, if you don't plan, or if you don't use appropriate evaluation criteria, or if you can't secure the items within the budget. So these are important options, and they really help the learner to to get engaged with a topic. So when we talk about learner-centric, it really directly draws on the challenges faced by the learners, so as determined in the learning needs analysis. So we're going to talk about the learning needs analysis a little bit more, but what I want to also stress here is that scenarios should include real-life examples that learners can relate to. And and also just put your learners in the middle of the situation and ask them, what would you do? How will you react? So these are very powerful. Instead of saying, oh, what should, for example, Paula do next? Talking about learning needs analysis. So what kind of problems do learners face in their work environment? So ask yourself questions. What are the core skills that they want to develop? Are they just starting out their careers, or are they already experienced in a given field? So this will also help you in determining the prior knowledge. And what do learners expect from this course? Will they take the course to learn a new skill, or do they want to refresh their memories? So important questions we need to ask ourselves before creating the scenario to really make it learner-centric and relevant. Interactivity will allow learners to become fully immersed in a scenario or a given challenge. Here I can show you two examples. It's very important that also in dialogues they can reflect a little bit on the topic itself, and then as a next step apply and practice the decision making using the newly acquired knowledge and skills. In this example, we have shown learners about the different phases of procurement, and now it's their turn to decide what happens in each of these phases when we talk about pre-contracting, contracting, or post-contracting. And with their choices, they will also receive feedback. And we make this interactivity also in order to engage the learners, and so they can participate in the scenarios and don't do like, oh, next in the slides. And engagement and participation is really key for successful learning. This is the last slide, and I want to talk about these 6 steps with you, because I think they can be helpful in designing effective scenarios, and again linking back to the ECB Check quality criteria. Work with the SME to understand which decisions a person would make in a real life and what typical errors challenges might be. So this is the first thing you want to do before creating a scenario. And the second important thing is to define your learning objectives. Then you create the scenario and you think about how to make the scenario relevant to the learning objectives and the situation described by the SME. Then you define possible choice options for each critical decision, and each of these choices generates a consequence, and provide detailed feedback for each of these consequences. And provide learners with the information obviously required to make these decisions, and which I symbolize here with a suitcase. It is important that they have this information, otherwise it will lead to frustration, obviously. So if you begin the scenario without working with the SME or defining the learning objectives, the danger is that you will then spend all your time trying to shoehorn ideas, content into it. So it's best to start with the challenges then describe the objectives, and then think about a scenario which matches those. And then to keep tight with the learning objectives, actually define the assessment first, so they work out which choices need to be made and what feedback is necessary. And then from there, work out which content is required to support. So I hope this was helpful for you, how to design effective scenarios considering the ECB check quality criteria. And these 6 steps is kind of a summary of what we have gone through in this session. And please let me know if you have any questions or comments, if you want to share your experience. I really appreciate the collaboration with you and with everybody here on this MOOC. Thank you so much for taking the time, and I look forward to interacting with you. Thank you so much. Bye bye.